Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste Nilesh Ji. Very happy occasion here at Anaadi Foundation, where we have Nilesh Oak Ji with us. And the ashram is located in Ivyar malai near Parani in Tamil Nadu. And Ivyar malai, Ivyar means the five, the Pancha Pandava. And malai means the mountain or hill. We are located in the base of the Periya Ivyar malai, the bigger hill. And you have visited the Chinna Ivyar malai, where you had seen the Draupadi Amman temple and the cave. And it is also a very ancient Jaina sthala, where there has been a Gurukulam. We have heard of Airai Amman. So it is also maintained by the ASI, the Archaeological Society of India. So this is a very auspicious occasion where Nilesh Ji have had the opportunity to interact with the Gurukulam children. How did you feel?
Well, I get opportunity to travel around the world, and I lecture a lot to colleges, universities, schools. So that is the context in which I can share my thoughts. This interaction with student was exceptional. And what I would say is, for example, when you look at their ages, in fact, I was making a point to ask how old are they and what grade they are studying. And the reason I was asking is just sheerly looking at their overall maturity. Let it be the knowledge. And I was talking to the teachers and I said, I don't know how good they are in multiplication because I haven't asked them those questions, but just the confidence with which they interact. And not when I initiate the interaction. Without me initiating interaction, they will come. And this is across, right from the length and breadth, like, from the 8-year-old to whoever is the eldermost there. Uh, the other maturity, which I don't know if we have a good measurement for that, that is, you sense it, you almost perceive it at a subjective level, but that was also amazing. And so it's a exceptional. That's one. Now, as a segue for that, what I found in America, for example, in an Indian community, you can say, there are these Sunday schools where they don't get to come for the whole week. Just like here, they are 24/7, 7 days a week. They are right here, which is, of course, has its own benefits. But even when that is not possible, even in America, I have seen those students, say within Indian community, just limiting to Indian community for now, those who come to the Sunday school, and if I interact with them, and I do get to interact because I get invited for these summer programs, um, their behavior, their maturity is also very different than the rest of the Indian kids.
Amazing.
Right? And so now multiply that effect, and this is for those who may be watching this in America. So think of the effect of that only Sunday school once a week. Multiply that, I don't know by what number, maybe a factor of 1,000, and then you have got Anaadi Gurukulam.
Yes, that's a great compliment coming from Nilesh Ji. The Anaadi Dharma Gurukulam, we started in 2021. Our children also study here, and there are children from various parts of the country. So the motivation for this started when we were professors. I and Matrashri Anantalakshmi, we were professors, and there we used to have thousands of students coming home. So we used to have an open door policy. So morning 4 to night 12, it would be open. And apart from our lecture schedule and so on, students would walk in for maybe yogasana or Vedanta or drama, art. It could be playing with children, or it could also be just hanging out. So whatever their motivation to come home, we were okay with it. And in the process, we got to know the students better and better. And what we felt was that if we look at a range of questions that they ask, the questions about computer science or their engineering subjects was very minimal. The questions were largely about life. What is the purpose of my life? What am I doing? Why am I here? All range of questions. And there we felt that education has to have components, content, which addresses this in a systematic manner. And it cannot be just ad hoc content. If it is just ad hoc content, then they cannot follow it up. Then they would be dependent on us as teachers. But systematic content, we found that if we introduce courses on Indian knowledge systems, where the content which addresses states of mind, now regular content addresses more objective phenomena, while Indian knowledge systems addresses objective phenomena as well as subjective phenomena. So that spectrum of content becomes very important to be introduced to students. So at that time, we started introducing courses on Mahabharata, yoga, and such aspects, which help them clarify about concepts of Purushartha. What is the purpose of my life? And that is an essential question that many people ask. Now, we don't need to reach a midlife crisis to ask such questions, generally people go through a midlife crisis and then they start asking questions, what am I doing here? What is the purpose of my life? Now that midlife crisis, the age for midlife crisis has started
going down.
Going down. It's as soon as even, pre-teenage.
True.
We would say, many students, many children have this question. So that became a very prime motivation after we started Anaadi Foundation to start the Gurukulam, because we don't need to wait until even engineering days or higher education to access such content, because higher education content is one level, but we need to start much earlier so that children are motivated in pursuit of knowledge, in pursuit of dharma, in pursuit of truth. And that also builds, say, livelihood skills, other skills, where they feel a fulfilled life coming here onto this life experience is very much possible. Not as an ad hoc phenomenon where we go through immense suffering and then we start asking, a few people start asking questions and then they suffer even further before they figure out something for themselves. But how can this be part of formal education? And there, Indian knowledge system very much offers it. So that became one of the reasonings. Also, one other motivation was everyone looks at progress. They want accessible format for progress. So we started seeing that progress reports carry subjects and marks. But that does not do justice, because with that, they again project further onto their higher education, then their jobs, their lives itself, and starts applying such unidimensional metrics to their own idea of progress. Is their life progressing? Yes, my bank balance is growing and hence I'm progressing. But then that kind of a mapping comes into serious question, because everyone is intelligent. Everyone figures out, hey, my career growth does not reflect in my level of health or happiness or well-being or even societal consciousness. Am I contributing to society? And hence we started looking at how to grow this idea of progress itself. There we consulted the Upanishads and we were motivated by the Panchakoshiya Vikas, Panchakosha framework, where Annamaya Kosha, what is the frequency of you falling sick, for example? It can be measured. It's a measurable outcome as a framework of progress. Pranamaya Kosha, are you energetic throughout the day, which allows you to participate wholeheartedly in your life process? Because low prana means, your participation decreases, and that way idea of fulfillment also decreases. Then Manomaya Kosha, the mind, feelings, sentiments, emotions, Am I loving, caring, compassionate, harmonious with people and other living beings around me? That also becomes very important for future success. Vijnana Ekosha, anyhow, no, knowledge is important, subjects are important. And there can we have frameworks by which it's not just marks, which is like averaged out, because current mark system, if we say grading patterns, are averaged out phenomena, more like statistical significance. More, how can it be personalized?
Yeah.
Because the idea of growth and knowledge and Anandamaya Kosha, everything said and done, everyone wishes to be happy. So, am I fulfilled? Am I happy? So all these became very important guiding principles, and hence we started, in the Gurukulam, we started focusing on such principles, where it's rigorous principles by which the student can self-evaluate, the peers can evaluate, and the acharya can also evaluate, and the parents can also evaluate. Because now there is this robust framework for evaluation. Otherwise, evaluation of success was limited to, subjects, marks, and then everyone feels there is something missing, but they are not able to place a tab on it. But this Panchakosha framework provides a very robust mechanism for evaluating frameworks of progress. So these became, very important for us to be able to show a model, a working model. And that's how we, envisaged and started working towards this Gurukulam. So that also leads me to, giving a background. We belong to the Siddha Parampara. So you'd have visited the Dhyanalayam. There is our Paramaguru, Agastya Maharshi, and there is Kriya Babaji, our Guru, and there is Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada. You have been a student of the Itihasa Purana, where we find Puranic stories illustrating the concepts of Purushartha, for example, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. And, as a researcher in the Puranas, it was very enlightening to, listen to you talk about dating of the Mahabharata or dating of some of the episodes of the Puranas. What is your view on Agastya Maharshi?
Before I get into Agastya Maharshi, a couple of comments related to the Gurukula.
Oh, yes.
When you mentioned you started in 21, that was a shock and a surprise to me.
Okay.
Because we know each other for 6+
Yeah,
years.
yes.
And so I was under the impression that it's possibly that long. So if you consider 21 as a starting point, so that's like barely 3 years.
3 years.
And just the setup that you have, what the level it exists is actually truly amazing. So you mentioned also the Panchakosha framework. America right now is actually struggling, but also I would say very few people are trying to experiment. Very recently, when I say very recently, it may be even 10 years ago. I don't remember exact time frame. Where the president of Harvard University, a lady, left their job.
Yes.
Okay, and then she wanted to explore the alternate things.
Yes.
There is another university that has come up in Austin.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard about that.
Okay.
Rajiv Malhotra ji is somewhat connected with that.
Oh, okay.
Where academics who are extremely tired of the mediocrity that is going on into the mainstream academia, they sort of, because they were literally muffled. They couldn't say what they wanted to say. And so some of those folks have come into Austin. It's still experimental. And they are trying to build something. Again, a consistent theme that I find everywhere. So many times in the West, you can see there is that right seed is there. All of that goes on, except one thing missing. And that's a big important thing, is a dharma.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I say that in the Austin, that is also happening. I have not followed the progress of this president of Harvard who left and what she has done. So I cannot comment on that. But maybe in the due course of time, Anaadi Foundation Gurukul, but many similar appropriate attempts, they can be the guiding force for what they can do with the great resources that they have.
Yes.
And with that, I come to Agastya Maharshi, your second question. And now I have a question for you on the Siddha Parampara. But someone like Sage Agastya, of course, every verse has a different meaning. but there is a sage Agastya on the ground, of course, in the celestial sphere, celestial in the sense, like I would say, in the universe, and then the celestial spheres, which is a star canopus. So Agastya, as a individual, as a sage, as a great yati, great yogi, we know actually from the Purana perspective, or from say Rigveda, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Itihas perspective, as much as there is so much information about him, we know so little. Okay, because it comes into bits and pieces. It comes into bits and pieces in the Rigveda, ditto in Ramayana, and ditto in Mahabharata. But in the background, it is always there. So that's on the Purana side. In the celestial sphere, as a sage, star canopus, its importance is it's so important. For example, I'll take two or three, which is to say, a sage Agastya, a star Agastya, I should say, becomes a pole star in the southern hemisphere every 26,000 years. And what the effect that it has an effect on the astronomy, therefore the agriculture and also navigation, but it has also effect into the adhyatmic frame. And of course, the adhyatmic frame has to do with the agriculture and navigation, right? It's a signal for that. So, for example, Chidambaram is the last location further south, that some south of Chidambaram, Agastya, see, this is a reference point. South of Chidambaram, Agastya from India is always visible.
Amazing.
And that is the significance of Chidambaram.
Okay.
So I was mentioning to one individual at the ashram. So if you look at the position in the Chidambaram temple, so the two fingers that are showing down there of a Nataraja, they are saying, I have not forgotten Agastya, even when you don't see it. And he's saying from that border. Now in Parashar Tantra, which is a astronomy text, the journey of Agastya is given very interestingly. So you have heard the Puranic story of Agastya coming south of India.
Yes.
So of course that may be happening on the ground, but let's not talk about the ground. The Parashar Tantra talks of the celestial Agastya coming south of India, which is to say, when it is no longer visible north of India, and that allows us to actually explore this 26,000 year cycle multiple times. That is the beauty of Agastya from a civilization perspective. But now my question to you, what is the role of Agastya into the Siddha tradition? But also, what is a Siddha tradition and how that distinguishes from, say, other traditions in Sanatana?
Yes. So when we look at the Siddha tradition, now many people believe that this body ages and eventually perishes. And when we look at the body aging and perishing, in modern sciences, one of the approaches is how do we, find a formula, like an anti-aging formula, by which we can extend our lifespan. Now, the Siddhas go much further than that, and then not just look at anti-aging, but we find shlokas like Mrityurma Amritangamaya. So, Mrita to Amrita. How do we actually turn into not exactly immortal, but the term here is Mrita. And what dies, this body perishes. But then if we look at it, the body is looked at in the Siddha tradition as made up of Pancha Mahabhuta. So the Pancha Mahabhuta, when the body perishes, they disintegrate. But if we actually look at it, for example, we live in Palani Kshetra. Palani is very famous for the Murugan temple. The Murugan temple, the Murugan Vigraha was formulated by an advanced Siddha process, by Siddhar Bhoganadar. He is also called Bhogar in the South Indian tradition. He is also called Bhoganath in Navanath tradition, Navanath Sampradaya. So, he is also called Lao Tzu, arguably Lao Tzu in the Chinese tradition. So, his guru Kalanginadar, he is also a Nath. So, Kalanginadar in South, Kalanginath in North, and Confucius in China. So, like that, these are interlinkages. Are they the same persons or not? That is very tough to decode based on current ideas of history. So that's why I'm saying arguably.
Yeah.
But here in the Siddha literature, you will find such references here, there, and everywhere. But having said this, definitely one caveat is that they are known to have multiple siddhis. That means one of the siddhi is parakaya pravesha, or where you can move from one body to another body. Now, this has not been demonstrated in modern sciences.
Correct. Or even modern times.
Modern times.
Visible way.
In a visible way.
But in Adi Shankaracharya, we hear that.
We hear that. So that way, looking at just our Puranas as, having faith in our Puranas as the basic reference material,
repository.
Repository. If we refer to the Purana, then it's clear that such things are valid. Okay. If we look at scientific journals, they may not look at it as valid. Yeah. So that's why here that distinction has to be made.
Yeah. But see that, just to interrupt, but that because you don't see them in scientific journal, because to study, so this is from a science perspective, these are metaphysical. It is beyond their purview.
Okay.
Right. So maybe with the due course of time, as the science and technology evolves, we may be able to demonstrate that.
Yes.
But for now,
you
don't see that in the scientific journals.
Exactly.
The reasons you state.
Exactly. So that is true because of the assumptions that we hold. So one of the core assumptions that we hold is mrita. That is, the body disintegrates. Okay. But the body is always radiating in the Panchabhuta. There is a live interaction. That's how the Siddhas look at it. So disintegration is one thing, complete disintegration. But if we look at, there is a live flow of the Panchabhutas. All the time happening. Now, what is it that is holding it in place, which we call as life? So that the Siddhas have studied and worked on it. There are processes that make sure that the live interaction goes on, but it is like perpetuating the life cycle. So it's like a perpetual machine. So if we can say that. So all the time energy is generated, and that is what we call as life. For that we consume energy, but it's not limited to just the food.
Yes.
It's also the prana. It's this live interaction. When the flow is appropriately modeled, then can there be a condition where we reach amrita from mrita? So from a state where we assume death to be
given,
it's given,
or unavoidable,
yes. And nobody questions that. So the Siddhas question even that. So even a fundamental assumption is questioned. Nothing is left to just vague interpretation or just broad assumptions. So that way we can look at the Siddhas as very highly advanced scientifically. And these are still preserved in the for example, in the Tamil texts. So Agastya maharshi represents the foremost of the Siddhas.
Okay.
So he is like the Mutavar. Mutavar means the elder, eldest.
Eldermost.
Eldermost.
Siddha tradition, yeah.
Siddha tradition.
The initiator, you can say.
One can say that.
Yeah.
So that way, he has worked both in Sanskrit as well as in Tamil.
Yes.
So there are Sanskrit texts attributed to Agastya maharshi. There are Tamil texts, for example, Tamil Perunul Kaviyam. So there is Agastya, 12,000 verses. Bogar, Ezhayiram or Saptakandam, 7,000 verses. So these all seem very advanced now, given our assumptions, the current state of assumptions that we have. Nothing else, Otherwise, they are processes which we might find it difficult to believe because it breaks our assumptions.
Our
all the way through.
Current assumptions.
Yeah. And that can be quite shocking.
Yes.
So unsettling. So when we say Siddha Parampara, so this is a full lineage where that knowledge is preserved and transmitted in a Guru Shishya Parampara, because the way knowledge is transferred, when we look at a current state of education, it is also more generic in nature. So where it's more general knowledge that is taught to everybody. So general knowledge is fine. But when we have to work upon fundamental assumptions in society, so general knowledge alone might not suffice, because there needs to be a close association, intertwining of the Panchakosha, if we can say, where there is absolute agreement or absolute communion between the teacher and the student, which a mass education might not provide the context for such an engagement. Correct. In the first place. Correct. Where it is more, let's say, livelihood based. But this cannot be just limited to just livelihood. Yeah. It has to go deeper than that.
Yeah. So in the mainstream education system, from the teacher's point of view, it's a livelihood based. But there's another problem. The teacher doesn't have a freedom in the sense somebody else is telling them
yes.
what to cover without telling them why.
Yes.
Because they themselves don't.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Just to intervene, one question. So you're talking of Siddha tradition and you talked about this interaction between the Guru Shishya. Yes. In our conversation the other day, you had mentioned when you went into long meditations, and I want to ask about that also. Yes. Like it could be unsettling for them, but then yes. Interesting for them to hear some of
yes.
the long meditation sessions you went through.
Yes.
But you also mentioned it came to you that Babaji Avatar is your guru in this time.
Yes.
What if, to the extent you are comfortable sharing, yes. What is it that led you to that conclusion?
Yes. To the extent that I'm allowed to share,
sure.
I will freely share. My remembrance of my childhood was that I constantly used to see the body and mind here. Okay. It was the attitude of a witness which always used to exist. But at that time, I did not have knowledge. At that time, everyone's image of me was more prominent than my self-image. My self-image had not awakened fully, if you can say that. Because as a child, when you grow up, you're looking at others and their image of you guides you more than your own self-image.
Trying to meet their expectations.
Their expectations. Like going to school, regular knowledge, and so on. No? So that way, that process took me further. But it used to have certain, I used to experience certain discordant notes, if you can say that. Some dissonance here and there, because it would not stick well. But I did not have knowledge to liberate me from those discordant notes. You need a lot of knowledge. If you encounter dissonance, even to figure out that it's dissonance, it takes a lot of experience and knowledge. So I did not have knowledge. When we say knowledge here, this is fundamental knowledge. This is not like a livelihood-based knowledge. It's not like engineering sciences or math, physics, chemistry, biology cannot solve it. This is more knowledge like what is available in Vedanta.
Yeah. It's like at a existential level, ontological epistemology.
Yes.
Like
yes.
Limits of knowledge.
Limits of knowledge. So that I was encountering all the time because I used to see the body and mind here. And imagine for a child, if I cry, I would see myself crying. If I laugh, I would see myself laughing. If I speak, I see myself speaking. And I would also be aware of what the other person is doing. So not just me, but what the other person is doing. Now this can cause a lot of dissonance because it's like a flow. Yeah. Flow means it's spontaneous response, you know. Even if it's a reaction, now people differentiate between reaction and response. But you know, without going there, one would see everyone else being normal in the sense of, you know, responding to situations in a spontaneous manner. While I will feel somehow I am slightly disadvantaged. You see, because I'm not able to do that. Yeah, it is like when you laugh, if you look at yourselves in the mirror, would you be able to laugh peacefully? Yeah. If you cry and you look at yourselves in the mirror, would you be able to cry peacefully? You know, peacefully means, you know, spontaneously. Yeah. Because now we wish to be in the flow state, where that flow or that spontaneity of response or reaction, that determines how free you are. Here, I was not so free because I used to observe it. Yeah. When you observe it, the intensity of it, when we say free, the freedom is to do with intensity of the reaction, right? That feels good. Like you get angry, you feel, in a sense, you know, I'm not saying it's, in a sense, you feel good because you're reacting strongly.
True emotion.
Yeah, for you, it's true, right? And others also perceive it as true. But here, for me, I'm observing it. So would it be true for me? Not so much, because if I wish it away, it'll go away. Oh, then that creates dissonance, because others are not like that, and I am like that, and that used to bother me sometimes, but not all the time. Till about my teenage, it was not so much of a bother. Even at that time, periodically it would emerge. For example, when I'm sitting in classroom, I would zoom out. There I will be observing everything that is happening from a distance, from a you can call it a divine distance. That is also divine. From a divine distance, I will be the observer,
including yourself. You would be part of that.
Everything zoomed out. I'm saying second standard, third standard. I remember such. And suddenly, if people don't see me responding, they will snap me out of it, and that would be like a jerk. It'll be like. But I would not have the language or the understanding or the mental model to capture this. So that way, over a period of time, when you're snapped sufficiently out of it, that means you start looking at yourselves as, I don't want this. Yeah. Or it's not acceptable in the society, and hence it's better.
I want to be normal.
Like I want to be normal like them. Yeah. So that was the growth that was happening. When it went into teenage, I started also asking questions, because naturally these things kick in. With teenage, with puberty, such things start happening.
You were asking the questions to yourself or whoever?
To myself.
To yourself.
Because also it's like, let's say, non-urban Indian child, a very normal family. It's not so much encouraged to question, Yes. It's more like you just go with the flow. And I was not so much of a rebel, it's internal questioning. So at that time, I started questioning the nature of emotions, the nature of what I'm going through. At that time, my sister gifted me Nanganallur Anjaneer, Hanumanji.
Okay.
And he became my friend, philosopher, and guide, my Ishta Devata. So daily I used to chant Hanuman Chalisa in teenage, And that was a huge anchoring process for me, because I could now freely talk with someone, and not be considered abnormal, say. As a child, look at it as a teenager, where you just want to be simple, acceptable. My life is flowing smoothly. I have an awesome family. I had awesome friends. I had awesome societal setup around me. It was not disturbing at all. It was a smooth process. I'm talking of an inner process, which is prominent. And hence, Hanumanji when he came into my life, it was glorious, So I could freely share with him, because if I were to share, for example, one of the things that at that time I remember was I used to read the newspaper. And now I know much better. But at that time, I used to think that is the world. My world was not so disturbing. But the world presented in the newspapers was very disturbing.
Yes.
And for a teenager, you wish to do something, As a child, I would not have responded like that, maybe. But as a teenager, you wish to do something, I need to do something to do, how can I be of benefit to the world? That was a natural response that I had. Now, if I express this, let's say to my parents, they're good people, but they would at max respond, your concerns are valid. We also don't know what to do. Now, the only thing that you can do is study. Right? Because they are also in a position of constraint, because our reality is stable. The places that we have been, nothing of the sort mentioned in the newspapers are happening in our reality, our world. So,
because it is disturbing, it is in the news.
It's in the news. Okay. So, but for a child who does not have this perspective, it's very disturbing, because it's alarming, and that's the world. But my world was not like that. It was very peaceful, very calm, very stable family, very stable environment. Everyone's life is peaceful. So these sorts of discussions I used to have with Hanumanji. So I went out with him, and that used to provide a lot of clarity that over a period of time matured. Then this gradually transformed into, college life, where it was active, good friends, everything. And naturally, as you rightly said, in college or when we look at university education, higher education, now the concept of dharma and moksha are not central. The concept of artha and kama, let's say artha, like why go into engineering college? To earn well.
The job is kind of
Job.
that time at least.
Yeah. At that time, job is the central. It's not looked at as empowering yourselves with knowledge. It's more looked at in terms of, how do I get a job? So that is the central purpose with which I'm oriented at that time. So naturally, that led me to, further steps. How do I become a multimillionaire? No. And hence, I landed in the US for my master's education. And post the education, it was intense. It was deadlines. And post graduating, somehow I felt empty. And my roommates also, were not there for about 3 days. And at that time, a deep spiritual experience happened, which was
in the US.
It was in the US. So a deep spiritual experience, which was highly transformative. Then later, when I started investigating further into the nature of the experience, then I started understanding that experience in the Yoga Shastra, it's called Samadhi, specifically Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Then I had started understanding the nature of the mind, nature of life, what is meant by prarabdha, the role of my guru, and so on. And I had an ajna to return back to Bharat. So, in Yoga Shastra, this is described as Ajna Chakra. Not for any, limited purpose. It's actually Ajna Chakra. But just that when we discuss the, chakras, it's like a live phenomena. It's just like, for example, the Annamaya Kosha. If you don't feed it, it does not grow.
Okay.
Likewise, the Pranamaya Kosha, if you don't feed it appropriately, it will not grow. The Manomaya Kosha similarly. If you don't feed it appropriately, the Manomaya Kosha will not grow. Vijnanamaya Kosha, we definitely understand. If we don't study well, knowledge we don't get, right? So now, this understanding, you can imagine in the context. My koshas were being fully developed. No, an accelerated development, because of which I had such an experience. Now, these have started coming into my range of vision.
This is that after that 3-day
After that,
event,
yes.
single event,
Yeah.
continue. That similar things continue.
So from that point on, it's accelerated because now it has come into my full vision. Earlier, that was not in my vision because I was vigorously pursuing artha. For example, I wanted to be a multimillionaire, or I was pursuing education. So there was no gap. And that gap was in terms of generally the mind. It swings between past and future. At that time, my past was done. I was okay with it. No, my education was done. I had nothing to look back to. And I didn't want to take up a job immediately. I was broke. That's another story. So, but I didn't want to take up a job immediately.
You broke for a reason.
A reason, yes. In retrospect, you can connect the dots.
Yeah.
At that time, I don't have a clue, what is happening. So, I'm not looking into the future yet. Though my parents have invested heavily into my education. And that gave a window where the mind relaxed into the now. And that gave access to all these inner phenomena. Because otherwise the mind is oscillating and it's taking us away from the process. So then my guru became visible to me in terms of an actual, process. And then I started understanding how prarabdha works, where there has always been the guru's guidance. Through Guru Kripa, I had that experience, which I had not aspired for as part of this lifetime. So I started understanding the Purva Samskaras. It continues with us. And that was a culmination point, or that was more like a trigger point bound to happen in this prarabdha for it to get activated. Now, once that was activated, gradually I had a series of awakening experiences that over a period of time led me to understanding deeper aspects of reality, how it works, what is my role in it. And that's how I was led further after a discussion with my wife. We knew we had to engage in loka sangraha actively.
So in these experiences, you were already married at that point?
So after returning back from the US, obviously as it happens, my inner experience is not visible outside.
Okay.
So others used to perceive it as hey, kya dialogue mar raha hai? You know, you were normal before you went to the US. Now what has happened to you? Be normal again.
Yeah.
So they were looking at me as abnormal because it was an active expression. But I could not go back. There was no turning back. There was 180 degree shift where I felt that the active pursuit of, say, for example, being a multimillionaire, I could do a lot with it. But I started understanding it will take me 10, 20 years to reach there. Did I want to spend that much, or why am I here? The wealth that I accumulate through that process, all will be gone. But what is the wealth if I invest in? It will not be gone. You know, it will also benefit not just me, but everybody around me. That's the idea of loka sangraha.
Yes.
And that's a quintessentially, you know, spiritual process. But still, I don't have so much idea. You know, at that time, I didn't have ideas of spirituality. I did not have, you know, I did not meet any spiritual guru till that time. Before that time, I had no introduction to even Bhagavad Gita, for example, because in our regular schooling education, you know, none of these concepts are introduced at that time, at least. You know, so I was not exposed to any of these. So this was in spite of this experience was in spite of all you know, lack of exposure. It was not because of the exposure. But then I felt that if the exposure is given, people can actually enjoy spiritual material instead of dividing it as a binary. One can seamlessly integrate because that is our Rishi Parampara. That is our Siddha Parampara.
Well, that is Sanatana too.
Sanatana.
So it's a refinement of, in the modern language, refinement of science is spirituality. Refinement of spirituality is science.
Science.
Feeds each other and improves.
Exactly. And that is a holistic idea of progress. Now people have a strongly dichotomous or a strong
almost against each other.
Against each other. But that's a binary mindset. If we have a progressive mindset, we will see it as a spectrum. And the spectrum is like an ascension and descension process. You know, both in the, you know, the entire spectrum matters.
Yes.
And how rich to make it. So it is like a, you know, process of richness.
Even you use the word ascension, descension. Sometimes you are descending to ascend again.
Ascend again. Yes. It's like multiple octaves, you know, if we look at it that way. So that way it led me further. And then I had the divine opportunity, I had the blessed opportunity to engage in Tapasya. Because I understood, and after discussion with my wife, one of us had to engage in Tapasya. It was decided I will engage in Tapasya.
She said, you do it.
So it's more like a
humorous note.
Okay. But you can imagine, you know, we had such understanding, but the situation around us might not be so encouraging. See, it's like in Puranas, we hear of stories where Rishikas, you know, Pati Patni, they engage in periodic tapasya for loka sangraha. But in modern times, maybe it's not so, you know, that's not in the popular imagination. I would only say it's receded. It's still very much there in our Rishi Parampara, but it's only receded. It is for larger dharma that the Dampatya's work, and that has been our Vivaha dharma. So how do we define it? That depends. You know, there is a large degree of freedom that is given.
But maybe because the say capitalist focus or the rest of the world focus on the artha and a kama. Even the Vivaha Samstha was brought into that. Thinking it's a reductionist view of
exactly. Just like what happened with education. The same has happened through all aspects of human. Even artha.
Instead of artha as a loka sangraha and a purohita, hitartha, it just became artha means money.
Money. It's like a reductionist view. And hence it's very easy to add more dimensions and make it rich because it's not like this versus that. So we added more dimensionality into our lives, and that became a rich married life. You know? And that's also the secret of a happy married life. You know, if we don't add dimensions, if it's too reductionist, then marriages develop some hiccups. So that way, this vision led me to perform some rigorous tapasya. So I used to accumulate vacation and burn it in tapasya. You know, so
can you tell us, to the extent you are allowed to, like us, say just for people who might be listening to this, an idea of Tapasya can take different forms.
Yes,
but
yes.
some of the things that at least you did,
Yes.
which may be surprising to them again, maybe
Yes.
unsettling to them,
Yes.
but worth listening.
But worth listening, because this is accessible to everybody. It's human birthright to realize such dimensions, which is very much available in Bharat. And now more and more people are awakening to these aspects, and these can be taught, systematically, because it's it's not outside the scope of regular life.
Yeah.
In fact, what we mean by regular includes all the Panchakosha.
Which is a good point you said, because even just going back to the Gurukula, where you said one thing is like a guru decides what to teach today, but also which still can happen, but you have created a syllabus, so to say, from a different perspective. Same thing, I think you are extending this to. So there is a method to madness even in the advanced stages of.
Exactly. And I would look at it as not madness at all, because madness means.
The word
yes, so that's a popular phrase. That's why I'm clarifying, because it's not madness.
Yes.
Now, spiritual sciences are looked at as madness because of this dimensionality reduction, if you can say that.
Let me tell you, in America also, right now, I would say it's a trickle. It's a very small group. Like some of the name you would have heard, like a Gaia.
Yes.
Like some of the researchers there. But because of AI, the artificial intelligence, and even otherwise, there are many. Just like the Siddha Parampara is already talking it about the Mruta to Amruta. There, maybe they are just barely scratching the surface.
Yes.
But the intentionality is there. And the sincerity and seriousness is also there.
Yes, that's also.
Maybe very elementary in terms of thinking.
Yes. So, and that's where
they won't think it's a madness.
Actually, yeah. That's where a segment of the population worldwide will not look at this as madness. They will think it's methodology, which anybody has they have the birthright to access. Yeah. It's just a science, and that can be taught in a rigorous manner. And that's where Panchakosha model becomes a powerful model of, even pedagogy. Because if it is taught in just a classroom, now people are just taught abstract knowledge. While this is also a knowledge that is experiential. So that's the ascension and descension process. Like our pramana state, pratyaksha, anumana, agama, let's say. Agama or shabda or attavakya, that has to be realized.
Yes.
Right? Pratyaksha.
Yeah.
So that way, not just paroksha anubhuti, but aparoksha anubhuti. That is the essential process of education. The knowledge, the pedagogy that supports it becomes very powerful. Now, that pedagogy is not limited to just a formal setup of a Gurukula or an education. That can be applied in personal lives, even no matter what the age. So that's where even Grihasthas have successfully applied such methods and grown significantly. That's
the majority of the great rishis that we know were
Grihasthas. Agastya Maharshi, Lopamudra Devi. Yes. So like that, there are these are role models in possible. So that's where I, being a Grihastha, I could engage in Tapasya. Yeah. And when we say Tapasya, the essential context for Tapasya is let's say, regular life. One is engaged with outer world. Okay. Where let's assume that's a signal. Where inner signals, for example, the mind. What is the source of the mind? What is the source of thoughts? All that is like muted. Why muted? Because the external signals are so loud that the inner signals, the source of our thinking, or that is not visible.
It's a signal to noise ratio.
Yes, exactly. So it's like a signal to noise ratio in electronics or communications terms. So, but this purpose, I'm not using the word noise because the external reality is not noise. Yeah. So that's why I'm consciously not using the word noise, because then people again be in conflict. The external reality is noise, so I need to shut it off. Then the people in our lives might be looked at as enemies to our progress, which is not the idea of Siddha process at all.
Which is not the idea of Siddha.
Where looking at the people around us, the circumstances around us, if we look at them as noise, which obstructs us from receiving insights with respect to who am I? What is the nature of my mind? The essential spiritual process. If we look at it as obstructing, then we look at them as enemies or obstacles to our progress.
I got it.
So that's why I'm not using the word noise. Because noise means it's more like a
negative. There is a
in the negative.
to it, yeah.
So while it's like external signals, they mute internal signals
Correct.
initially. So that's where even a physical environment, for example, Bhagavan Krishna mentions Vivikta Desha Sevitva.
Yes.
So even a physical environment which will allow us to access inner signals, which otherwise, please look at it as a process, a methodology. It's not like there, you shut it off, instantly it's on. No, one has to figure out. The theory is there. It's like Paroksha Anubhuti is there. The rishis are saying, and hence I have Shraddha, I believe in it. But if we need to make it our own experience, what is the process? And there, some intensive lab work, if you can say that. Sometimes we do generic lab work. Now, intensive lab work means, and especially when the calibration is really fine-tuned, it's highly sensitive equipment. We need to, subdue the external interference, external, signaling, and then amplify the inner signaling. If we look at it that way, then how to isolate ourselves? Because I used to be in meditative states, but I needed further tapasya to access deeper signaling process. So that way, I receded to a place, to a hut, which was free of external disturbances. And then to reduce interaction with the external world, I take a cooking pot. Simple this with pre-boiled rice and some full moong. These are traditionally acceptable. So simple food without salt, without masala and all that, because they will again disturb. They will again make the mind active towards the sensory input. So now I'm wishing to go where the external sensory input, if they are subdued, the mind should be able to withdraw and go inwards. It's like turning the mind within, on itself, on deeper process. So to be able to do that, a circumstance where sufficient length of time I wanted to conduct this experiment, if you can say, a research into consciousness, if you can say that. So I would have to withdraw. And there, I and my wife discussed, and it was agreed that I will take up such a effort. One vacation was dedicated to this. So 40 days, I withdrew into one hut. And simple life, it's very simple.
Yes.
Cooking, everything is simple. So this way, I don't need to interact with the outside world. No interaction at all. Because that interaction might again trigger the mind into external engagement.
True.
That I wanted to avoid, because this is like a lab process.
Yes.
Just as in a lab, how do we isolate, so that we can observe,
Yes.
we can observe. Otherwise, live process means, real life means that we don't know, confounding variables, it's like that can confound our process of observation and inference. So similar process with clearing off unnecessary verbal interaction. So when we say mauna tapasya, mauna is at multiple levels. Para, pashyanti, madhyama, Vaikhari. So even Vaikhari can be muted. So Vaikhari Shabda,
Just
so that is muted. So that way I don't need to speak for 40 days. Okay, that itself is huge liberation. Okay, then even say texting, communicating with the outside world, that also is in a sense Vaikhari.
Okay.
External engagement.
True. Yeah.
So that also I don't need to communicate.
Yes.
I had worked, pre-processed sufficiently so that 40 days nobody will miss me.
Yeah.
Okay, even if they miss me, my wife will hold the ground.
And that was your goal? Say, for example, 40 days?
40 days was a goal.
Yeah.
So we had worked towards this for some time.
Yes.
So that my wife will hold the ground for 40 days, because you need someone to bat for you.
Correct.
People will be inquiring, and they might walk in and disturb.
Yes.
Yeah, so such things I had to take care appropriately. So since my wife is along with me, that is the role of dharma pati and patni, saha dharma charini or saha dharma chari, whichever we look at it. Husband and wife's role is that. So that way, since she has deep understanding, we both have mutual understanding. We felt this is very important, and hence 40 days I could be isolated. No necessity for any interaction with the outside world, because she's taking care.
Yeah.
So I'm just free of that. I need to do this, I need to do that. No, nothing of that sort.
But walk me through, so you talked about Vaikhari. But walk me through the 4 stages backwards, like
So,
that you can also.
Yeah. So Vaikhari, I'm taken care of.
Yes.
So I don't need external communication at all, physical or non-physical, like a mobile phone or so those I've taken care of professionally and personally.
Yes.
So professionally also, it's official leave,
Yes.
so I don't need to interact. Nobody is going to test me at that time. Now, when we say, another level that needs to be taken care of is, say, emotional hiccups, emotional ups and downs. We have had a happy married life. I have had a happy life generally. And remember, I already have a Samadhi experience.
Is that madhyama? The emotional is
So, madhyama can be looked at as emotional.
Emotional.
Where your sentiments, your feelings, they are tugging at you. Now, my children are also there. When I am going for Tapasya, already, Tejasvi was born. So, but my wife is taking care, and hence I don't have to, I will not be tugged.
Yes.
I will not have guilt, or I will not have lower order emotions I generally have not suffered from. Like the Shadrupu. The Shadrupu, during my experience itself, I felt twangs getting cut, and I was free of that. That was done when I had that experience. So, this is to do with subtler emotions, subtler feelings, sentiments, the feelings of companionship. All that for me was already done. Otherwise, 40 days staying alone will also tug you at your sentiment level, at a feeling level.
And this is not something you have done it before.
I'm not used to this at all. This was a first experiment. Okay, and I have no guidance. For an external viewer, I have no guidance.
So quickly on that, and I want to hear about the para and pashyanti too. What is it? There is no external guidance. So was this inner guidance that told you you're going for 40 days and all of these things?
Yes. So inner guidance is definitely there. By then, I had figured out. See, all through my life, all through our lives, me and my wife, we always had guidance. By that time, we had figured it out. In retrospect. So we had no doubt about these things, about the role of a guru. So we didn't have those kinds of doubts. But explicit guidance we did not need at that time, because we could largely figure out. Intuitively, we knew the path that we were taking, and we trusted in prarabdha. That means at the right time, right things will come to the fore.
Yes.
It's like it's there, but it has to come to the fore. The tapasya was not a requirement immediately after my samadhi.
Yes.
Otherwise, I would have undertaken, tapasya right there. But I needed more worldly experience before I can serve the world. So, and hence, when tapasya became a requirement for us, we could understand intuitively. But other things are also happening in our life. So it's not that it's just, okay, this is the path we need to walk. Not like that. Not so explicit. But that's where our judgment, we need to trust in our own judgment. That is also something that we grow to do as we go ahead with our lives. We trust in our judgment. We trust in, each other's judgment when we are married. That happens over a period of time. So by that time, we were sufficiently trusting in each other's judgment. And hence, if I have to do a tapasya, we did not question the fundamental basis of it. Not like, will you walk out of marriage?
Yes.
None of that. Otherwise, that could be a challenge. So the emotions are pretty much settled in that sense.
Yes.
So madhyama, when we say, that is not tugging. So there is no raga dvesha, but there is anuraga. Anuraga means, connect with the divine. Ishta Devata, Guru. That connect, it's an active connect. That we feel. It need not be a form. But that feel will guide us. So it is like an inner process.
Agreed.
Now many of us depend on outer signaling to develop trust. But actually the inner compass, this assessment, this judgment, if we look at all higher order skills, if you become a CEO, you need to trust in yourself. Not just on the data. The data might support you, but it's fundamentally...
It's a gut feel.
Gut feel. Fundamentally, it's your call. Like that, as we grow in the spiritual process, that is the thing that guides us. And that is the Guru. That is the Agnya Chakra. And these are interrelated. let me come to it later if we have time. So by that time, so the madhyama, so my emotions are not being disturbed at all. I don't have a problem because it's it's a life,
You work for it.
Work for it.
Yeah.
That's a very good term.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it because otherwise it might appear mystical.
Yes.
No, it's karma phala. We have put in the actions that leads to that emotional stability. That does not mean our external life is perfect or it's fully stable. Our finances are met, or we don't have external issues at all. Not like that at all. But reasonable level of stability exists. So my feelings are also stable. I'm also not eating food which will destabilize my feelings. Kama, krodha, all that irritation, all that I'm restricting because of the food. Simple food. No, simple. That's why in the yogic system, simple vegetarian is advised, so that anytime you need to step deeper, you can easily free yourselves from even that requirement. So this is also signaling. Generally, what engages us with the outside world is also a strong tug on our feelings. We emote a lot, and we give a lot of credence to emoting. That's who we think.
Again, what the world thinks of us.
What the world thinks of us. And that would be generally in raga dvesha. I like this, I don't like this. Oh, he likes this. He likes this food. This is his favorite food. Or he hates that, All that is now sort of like stabilized. So that again is not so much of a challenge for me personally. If there is a challenge, anyhow one has to work towards it. So there is a method to this process. Then gradually we come to another signal. So Vaikhari is a signal. When that is sufficiently stabilized, the madhyama becomes visible. Madhyama is again a signal.
Yes.
It's like the sentiments, feelings, the roots of those start becoming visible.
Yeah, which you are not aware, more like that signal noise kind of.
Signal noise.
The cruder one out. Now
these become visible.
Yeah.
In Siddha, this is called parvike ettardu. Parvike ettardu means parva means our range of vision, and ettardu means visibility. Now it becomes accessible.
Yeah.
Accessible vision. Earlier it is there, but it's not yet accessible in terms of our vision. So this is stabilized for me. No feelings, sentiments, emotions. It's not tugging. And that's not my state of reality. Otherwise, I could be busy with those activities. So that has been silenced. I am isolated. Now, pashyanti. Pashyanti, it's like, see, even this even happens with communication. Since I have been a teacher, when I teach large audience, I clearly see who. We are not talking of people who don't listen. That is a different story. But even people who are listening, paying attention, they would be in this category. So where some people will hold on to my external words, which is like Vaikhari, they will not grow beyond that. Some people will connect with me with the words and also the feelings. They will understand my feelings, sentiments, where I'm pointing at. They will become inspired and so on. Some people will be able to, what I'm seeing, they will be able to see. That is pashyanti.
Or what's your ultimate aim
behind this? That seeing means not limited to images, right? Seeing,
it's comprehending.
Comprehending. And that's where dimensionality is not reduced, but it's full blown.
True.
Because if you need to see where someone is, showing, you need the full context of knowledge itself to be able to see that specific thing. Right. So that is pashyanti. And then para means you don't need to resonate even there. You know the source. You are coming from the same source as the teacher. Those would be very, very few students that I have encountered. Very few are in the pashyanti stage. Many would be in the feeling stage, that they get inspired. A large number would be in the
listening words.
But a very, very large number is not there yet.
Okay, the Manushyanam Sahasreshu. Yeah.
So they are not even paying attention. They are in their own world. So here we are describing just as outwardly.
They're saying
now
it's the lunchtime.
Yes. So outwardly, just as we described, growing orders to para, likewise inward. Now the way we connect with ourselves can be Vaikhari, can be madhyama, can be pashyanti, where we see where we are intuitively visible. What is being registered is intuitive. That is pashyanti, where intuitively everything becomes visible. Okay, you know the source of other things emerging of your life process. That also is not so much of a problem for me because of this samadhi experience. Samadhi means the knower, known, and the process of knowing starts merging. The boundary is not so strict. So similar thing, since that is there, but now for loka sangraha, I have to go. I have to descend and ascend, descend and ascend. So I'm doing these processes, and hence a lab setup where I'm isolating myself. So it is not like a end goal. Where tapasya is more like a research process. Research is not just with the end goal in mind. Where you are going deeper, it's a deep dive, understanding what's emerging, and for it to emerge, first itself, when it emerges, you may not understand it. And especially to be able to communicate and talk to people, or develop algorithms and methodologies to access such things, you need to do it again and again and again and again before you can become aware of the weeds, for example.
Yeah, and even you have a challenge of how you explain it to others.
Others,
like,
yes.
You have to use metaphors that they understand. Because
yes.
they don't have the experience that you are experiencing here.
Yes. So, pashyanti, what kinds of deeper impressions lie in our mind? Those samskaras start emerging. For example, I used to like knowledge. Okay. So, one can be, if intuitive flashes occur, whole conceptual basis can be downloaded. You can have flashes of vision where you intuitively understand a whole area of knowledge. That can be very fascinating.
Which you cannot explain to others.
Yeah. But they can be shown. Then they can access such intuitive flashes. This is done in meditation. But my goal is not just that. Okay, that can be done. But my goal is not. My goal is to understand the entire process. So that's why when I encountered tapasya, it was not for myself or for my family. It was explicitly for loka sangraha. That's what we discussed. No, so it was so that the world can be a better place to live in by understanding these inner processes. Just as we have discussed external process, inner process. So para also means the source of this intuitive vision. The source is super rich, but it's not that. It's like the field from which everything is emerging, but the field itself is not touched by any of these. So this kind of a process, to understand it, I spent 40 days in Tapasya. This is setting the conceptual frame. The practices and so on. See, basically in the Yoga Shastra, for example, there is pranayama. There are simple practices. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. So from pratyahara onwards, it takes a different turn. Because dharana, dhyana and samadhi, they are looked at as sanyama. Where fundamental, yes, that's why tapasya is looked at as, for example, indriya sanyama. Otherwise, the mind is rushing outward. And mano nigraha, where the mind that's why yoga chitta vritti nirodha, tada drashtu swarupe vastanam. Vritti sarupyam itaratra. Otherwise, you are the vritti. And generally, we identify strongly with that. So this is to figure out steps by which one can comfortably withdraw when one wants to, where nirodhana happens, nirodha samskara happens, and then comfortably engage back when one wants. So the next time the 40 days was over, it goes like this. Many people think 40 days is like a lot of time. By now, I have had the good fortune of spending more than 300 days in Mauna Tapasya. But I'm describing the process. So even fixing a place which is like free of disturbances, where people understand such concepts and hence they will not disturb you. That itself takes time. Where do I go? Should I go to the Himalayas? Where will I find food? All these are work in progress. So the next time that after 2 years, again I got the window of opportunity to again engage in 40 days of tapasya. So this time before going, I visited Palani, and by that time Hanumanji had handed me over to Murugan. So earlier Hanumanji was my Ishta Devata, then Murugan was my Ishta Devata. So Murugan is my Ishta Devata.
Is Avatar Babaji in the picture?
Yes. Yes.
Already?
He's already there. But it is like, let's say, when you have a role to play, you will have multiple people, let's say, guiding in.
Yes.
And it need not be a conscious process.
Agreed.
Where who's guiding you? Let's say, for example, you are growing in your corporate career. You are visible to people,
Yes.
but they may not be visible to you.
Correct.
And many people take interest in someone who shows a lot of enthusiasm, vigor, energy.
But you don't necessarily.
You don't need to necessarily identify them as, oh, that's that CEO, that's that senior vice president, and so on.
Yes.
You know, it need not be
Yes.
so explicit.
Yeah.
No, one just needs to trust in the process.
Mm.
Largely, it's going good. It's good enough. By knowing specific details, what is one going to do? You know, in that sense.
And you may not come to know also.
Come to know.
At least in the corporate
Come to know.
world.
So, in that sense, Babaji had not emerged so much
Okay.
at that time.
Okay.
But so by the second Tapasya, he had emerged.
Okay.
The first Tapasya had accelerated certain things. By the second Tapasya, he had emerged to the fore.
Is it that in the pashyanti stage?
We can say pashyanti.
Okay.
So, pashyanti we can also relate in terms of at that time I had not had full Babaji darshan. So, for it emerging need not mean one has a darshan.
Yeah, not seeing in the literal sense.
In the literal sense. Later, I was introduced to Babaji formally by a great Siddha called Siddha Tirumular. That was a later happening, where it's like a formal process, let's say, where I was introduced formally. So Siddha Tirumular is again a very great Siddha Purusha. He is a strong guiding force. Now, that's why when we say Agastya, Bhogar, Tirumular, Babaji, for us, we don't have we don't have a hiccup where this means that person is out.
Yeah.
Not like that at all.
It's like a guru is one.
Guru is one. Guru is definite.
That's the principle is one, and so you don't see this versus that.
This versus that. But still, Guru is also specific.
Yes.
No, Guru is Kriya Babaji.
Yes.
No doubt about it. But all this whole, that's why we say Guru Parampara. It's like because many people can start taking interest.
Yes.
Because you are devoted to loka sangraha. Right? It is like that. And all well-meaning. Not a problem at all. Because your thing is fixed. So by the second time I went, before that I visited Palani, and then I was shown poha.
Okay. Yeah, you mean.
Yes. So that gave me, that was a huge discovery. Because otherwise to cook, to eat, then if you cook, you'll be wasting food because sometimes you'll be hungry, you'll not be hungry. And time does not matter because you're cut off from the world in terms of practical interaction. Yeah. So this, I was introduced to the Siddha superfood, so to say.
Yeah.
So that is aval puttukadla. You know, puttukadla is roasted chenna. Without salt, it's very tasty, nutritious, and you can have it any time of the day and night, but it will not disturb the doshas, vata, pitta, kapha. So like that, I had a beautiful time. That was the second stint of 40 days. Then, by that time, the need for an ashram emerged. Already people started living with us. So, by 2015, we identified the ashram space. We were directed, in a divine manner by Murugan. Muruga Perumal directed us to this place. This is a very holy place. This is a Siddha Kshetra, where Ivyar malai, not well known in this yuga, but otherwise a very powerful sthala. So when we, Palani is just 15 kilometers from here. So this is very much within the Murugan Adikam, we say. The Murugan is the Adhipati.
Like a Murugan Kshetra, like a Kshetra.
Yes, this is a Murugan Kshetra. So we were directed here. And that's how, the rest of the journey. Then I had further opportunities for Tapasya. The hill is accessible. There are caves in the hill. As one invests in it, it is just like a scientist. From a 10th standard view, a 12th standard might seem like that's it. From 12th standard perspective, college will seem like that's it. After that, I'm earning. But once one starts earning, it grows further. Like that, a scientist, initially a budding scientist might think, if I discover this is it. That's it. But that further emerges further areas of research.
So, in this scheme of your personal development journey, spiritual journey, where did you get this inspiration for, say, Gurukula, and where does that fit?
Yes. So, again, this is a mix of inner and outer. So, generally, a distinction between inner and outer is very, very strong. But for me, that was not the case. So, there would be in Siddha literature, for example, there is something called Arudam or Sagunam. There will be clues in the external reality which is matching your inner state. And those are clues for decisive actions. So that way, see, we were definitely involved in education because that's the main thing that we could think of. We were already teachers, and with the ashram setup, we were initially busy setting up, it periodically emerges. But at a certain stage, we definitely felt moved, especially after the COVID. Post-COVID, many people used to talk to us. And from that, what we could learn was that there is a significant gap. So we had tried creating a Gurukulam called Paravidya Gurukulam, along with the late Padma Shri Dr. P.R. Krishnakumarji of Ayurveda Pharmacy in Coimbatore. That had not taken off for whatever reason. But post-COVID, we definitely saw that so many people were suffering. And suffering, again, to define suffering is very tough because you need a lot of context to be able to see that, I'm stuck.
Because at the material level, it may not be suffering.
It may not be suffering at all. Right? So, but we could see, and hence that was very important motivation. We always go by, connect. When we connect with people, the people, what they request of us, we take it seriously.
So it is at the level of a loka sangraha.
Loka sangraha.
So again, going back to what you said, dhyan, dharana, samadhi, sanyam, and then tasya bhumeshu viniyogaha.
Yes.
So practicing that in a loka sangraha.
Loka sangraha. Context. And that becomes a natural expression. It is not so much of, okay, now from this point on, I am going to be like,
let me create a
not like that. It's a flow.
It's a flow.
No? And motivations are guided by your live interaction with society because you're also part of society. After that, what does Samadhi do? It takes off the boundaries, which are hard and fast, which we have assumed. We have strongly conditioned ourselves. That is not so much there. Then a suffering there is a suffering here. You cannot address all suffering, but certain things depending on your samskara, that means the background that you carry, that you will flow more easily.
You are swadharma.
You are swadharma. It's like the path of least resistance, if we can say.
Very good.
So, when you mentioned about, Agastya, you definitely said, canopus. So as a star system, there, if we look at our own Puranas, if we look at, say, for example, Babaji, when many people look at it, they are unable to believe in it. If one cannot believe in Babaji, one can definitely not believe in Agastya, for example, because too ancient and current idea of history does not lend credence to such beliefs. Let's say, and the beliefs are not empty because there are textual references and systematic textual references that we have in the Siddha literature, in larger Indian literature, in all bhashas, Bharatiya bhashas, and significantly so in Sanskrit.
You see, if you look at really, I consider what is unscientific, illogical, and idiotic narratives of likes of Yuval Harari, who has become so famous not only outside India but even inside India. Unfortunately, these guys don't go beyond 10,000 and 20,000. So sorry, back to you. But you're talking of different time frames.
Huge time frames.
They are not even digestible. Because of narratives like this.
Yes. And the narratives that we have depend on the frameworks that we hold. And the frameworks can be limiting or liberating.
Yes.
That's where, again, the Indian knowledge processes being active frameworks of reasoning. Because these are to do with reasoned out process. See, we are not discussing anything mystical or out of reason. This is very much within the frame of reason. Reason gives us the capability to address systematically the challenges that we face. If it is relegated to mysticism, then it is for a few.
Yeah.
But the rest have to anyhow fend for themselves.
Yeah.
But that's where reason, and reason depends on the corpus,
True.
on the agama,
Yeah.
or on the, pramana. What do we use? Because reasoning cannot be out of context.
Yeah.
And that's where, when you say, dating the Mahabharata or the dates, researchers might disagree by a large range. But that, it is dateable.
Yes.
That makes it reasonable.
Yes.
Because if it is not dateable, or then it's not there.
Yes.
It's beyond reason.
Correct.
And beyond reason is not something that can help us.
Correct.
Help society.
Yeah.
Help in loka sangraha.
Yeah.
And that's where your work is a very powerful motivation, I believe, for so many young people were here, and including children. All of them, I could clearly see whether they understood it or not. Because understanding your level of work and so on, it takes
agama,
background knowledge, and that can be given only, gradually.
Or they have to build it.
Gradually build it, because right now, for example, if we have to access, let's say, higher education of engineering, we build up that profile over a period of 12 years,
Correct.
in a graded manner, after which we access higher education,
right,
in engineering or medicine or law. But now, with respect to the Indian content, the Puranas or the Shastra, in any Bharatiya Bhasha, we unfortunately have no build-up process. The building up of this, gradual building up, is left to the individual or maybe the family. Some people are, are beneficiaries of being born in a suitable family environment.
Correct.
But otherwise, formal systems of education don't introduce in a graded manner.
How would they?
Yeah.
See, the mainstream academia even is stuck into such a narrow frame of reference that even Yuval Harari looks like a hero.
Yes.
When he talks of 10,000 years, 20,000
yes,
years,
yes.
right?
Yeah, because practically, everything else is dated like a few thousand years back.
Yes.
And now even that time frame seems, more than adequate.
Yeah. So what I see as a framework is like, what I call it, grain and chaff separation matrix. So whether you take Siddha literature or our Purana literature, Itihasa literature, Vedic literature, is like an immense repository. And with limited, or I would say also the growing ability in science and technology, we are becoming successful in pulling out certain things. So what I make is, like, for example, the axis, I call it the axis of testability. I call this side, if the testability is yes, that means it's scientific. But people make a mistake. They say if something is not scientific, that means is non-scientific or unscientific. That's not the case.
No, yeah.
It is metaphysical, atarkya, because it cannot be grabbed with the scientific arms that we have.
Yes.
It may change.
Yes.
So truly, in spite of the work by likes of myself or Rupa Bhati or many others have done, it's just scratching the surface. And I see the value only in the sense of loka sangraha. Otherwise, people ask me like about this, and I say, you know what? Say debate about dating of Mahabharata. I said 4 billion years from now, it wouldn't be relevant.
Well said. Yes. As you rightly say, your primary motivation really fascinates, because the primary motivation is not for yourself.
Yes.
It's for loka sangraha. And that can be a huge motivation given the current scenario of, say, disillusionment amongst young people.
You said it.
Because they want such role models.
Yes.
How do I invest my life?
Yeah.
What should I invest in? What is the direction? And that direction need not be like a specific pointer, do this, do that, but more like invest in intention towards loka sangraha. Or,
In fact, as a litmus test, that's a humorous note. But do you know what I say? Like yesterday's lecture, and some people were taking pictures. And I said, you may take pictures, but if you want the presentation, we will make it available. And this happens everywhere. And everywhere they're taking pictures. I just say the same thing, but I add that. I said, by the way, on this note, also remember this. Another speaker comes, but he or she is hesitant to share their PowerPoint presentation. They have not done something original. Otherwise, they would have no hesitation. Nobody can take that originality from them.
Yeah, it's like common knowledge. It's available already.
In fact, I say, like, take my presentation, go to the first page, replace my name with your name and start talking about it. It's
Amazing.
knowledge.
Amazing,
You know?
amazing. And that shows the spirit. And when that spirit exists, I feel a lot of the differences, based on actual details, can be there and can be accommodated.
And they are there for educational purpose.
Educational purpose, yes, yes.
We were having a discussion of how to design, say, people quickly jump and changing textbooks. I said changing textbook is good, but actually we also have an opportunity, maybe not to write the textbooks again. We need to write books, but not the textbook. For example, one of your representative came at Atlanta from all the Anaadi books.
Yes.
Bookstall was
Yeah, Manjukesh.
and just I was pulling certain books. Say, for example, you tell them about astronomy, nakshatra system, and then you may bring them to say Mahabharat Ramayana, for example. Instead of saying, oh, and by the way, Nilesh Oak has proved it 5561 BC, you may say there are 100 plus different researchers who have attempted, and the range is from 7000 BC to 400 CE.
Yeah.
And here are some 10 names from recent times. Why don't you go explore and you tell me which one you think is better?
Amazing, amazing, amazing. And that is the process of education.
That is the process of
that way more people can be inspired to look at this as valid way to live, valid way to spend their time, energy, and efforts in. And that inspiration, I feel, becomes very important for children to have. And that is one of the reasoning for starting the Gurukulam. That's where here the knowledge is fundamentally the source text. So Ayurveda source text, or I say Ashtanga Hridaya, or the Yoga Sutra, and so on. So the source text would form the basis. And then on top of it, modern knowledge process.
Yeah, I saw like a 10 years old student. I don't know exactly his age, but after our lunch today, he brought up this modern context. What is that? India book 2023.
Okay.
And see, he could connect the dots from yesterday's presentation to the map that he saw into this.
Amazing.
So he pulls the map, and this student doesn't know that map is created by me. So he says, look, what you said today, it is here, it is here. So that's just amazing connecting the dots. It is what we want to prepare them.
Exactly. Because not everything can be provided to them, but if this inspiration is given, then I think that would be really powerful. And when we talk of inspiration, it's about role models. So that way, we believe you are definitely a role model for at least the students here and the people who are watching this. And a role model does not mean they agree with your results. The role model is about this is a way to live. This is a way to explore. And that's how our rishis, they may not have agreed with each other.
Correct.
But they appreciate who a role model is. And one who inspires everyone along the right lines is doing great seva. So that way, we really appreciate your taking the time to come here and inspiring all of us here.
And I should add a note that I thoroughly enjoyed it. In fact, when many of your Gurujis, they were saying, please, when are you coming? I said, I don't know, but much faster than we think. And when the time is right, nothing can stop us.
Definitely.
And so that time was now. So thank you very much for welcoming me here, inviting me. I thoroughly enjoyed meeting all the students, all the cows, and visiting these wonderful places. So looking forward to visiting again.
Yes, you're always welcome here. Please consider this your home, and please definitely spend time, because you're an active researcher. You'd be growing in knowledge. We are sure that this vigorous exploration can again and again benefit with new insights. And here, next time, every time you come, I can guarantee that you'll be surprised at the children what they can offer you.
Yes.
So
yes. And so I'm experiencing this. You said consider this place as a home. And again, Aniketa Niradhara. So once I got rid of the attachment to that, every place is becoming
yes.
Thank you so much.
So let us end with an invocation. Om Loka Samastah Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samastah Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samastah Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.